More Nigerian students are expected back in the country today, Monday, from faraway Ukraine, as many of them still remain stranded in Sumy part of the country. Arise correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya, who has been on the ground in the border of Poland, joins us now for updates on the ongoing evacuation and the plight of Nigerians and other Africans in Ukraine. Adefemi, thanks for joining us on the program. What's the latest at the Medika border? Earlier, we heard the vast majority of refugees at the border are Ukrainian. Is that still the case?
Thank you very much. Well, yes, that is still the case. Some 1.5 million refugees are believed to have crossed from Ukraine into Medika, which is the Polish side of the border with Ukraine. 1.5 million of them, and many more are expected to come. But as you asked, yes, the vast majority naturally are Ukrainian refugees from Ukraine. Now, that obviously is going to be expected, the fact that you'd have nationals of the country currently facing a war, having the highest number of refugees. But we know that there are many other nationalities affected by this conflict in Ukraine who are not solely Ukrainian. The vast majority of those nationals that we've been focusing on are those from African backgrounds. And we know that Nigerian and African students, many of them remain trapped in areas of Ukraine, including Sumy. And for those individuals, it continues to be a very bleak situation there because it's unclear when they will be able to safely make it out. Now, we have heard from the Nigerian Foreign Ministry, and we do know that there were plans in place. There was an announcement late last night that said that an evacuation or a safety corridor would be announced, and the first Nigerian evacuees stuck in Ukraine would be evacuated today. I've relayed that message, that information, to one student who's currently trapped in Sumy, and they've told me that at around 2 a.m. this morning, those plans, as they heard it, did collapse. So we are still waiting to hear a bit more information on what's going to happen on the students stuck in Sumy. But as you've rightly can see, we are on the Medika border between Poland and Ukraine, and just over my shoulder there in the distance you should be able to see a green fence and people walking through. That is them walking from the Ukrainian side of the border over into Poland, where they will join a queue and get on many buses that have been circling around, taking people into the broader town so that they can either stay and find residence there or move more locally, or move more centrally rather, to areas of the Polish capital, Warsaw, which is around 4 to 5 hours drive away.
And Femi, there are also those fears that there are other Nigerians that are trapped on the Ukraine side of the border and unable to make their way to Medika. You said that the plans for the kids in Sumy had collapsed. Are there any more Nigerian students who are trying to get evacuated and haven't been reached?
Well, thank you, Howard. So if we tackle the first bit, which is Nigerian people stuck on the Ukrainian side of this Medika border, that is the reports that we've been hearing. And I've spoken to the Nigerian ambassador to Poland, Charles Ugu, within an hour or two, and he told me that he had also heard those reports, and because of that he will be traveling to Medika today to cross into Ukraine, pending the correct approvals, to check if there are any Nigerians stuck at the border over the Ukrainian side. And it's anticipated if he does arrive in the coming hours, Arise News would be right there with him in order to see what the situation is in terms of whether or not there are Nigerians who are stuck on the other side of the border, unable to come over to this side.
All right, Jenny, you're speaking about Nigerians on the other side of the border, but have you heard any updates from the students in your reports? What's the latest with them right now?
Thank you very much, Aaron. Well, I've sent messages to both Williams and Victory asking them how they are, try to keep in contact, and up until the time of me coming live to you, both of those messages have not been formally received. We've been communicating on WhatsApp, and there's only been the one tick so far, so it's unclear whether or not they're still in Poland, or if they've successfully crossed it over into Germany, or whether or not it's a situation that they've run out of money or are unable to connect to the internet or have lost battery. But we will continue to re-establish contact with those two students to find out the latest with them and find out how they're journey as it pertains to waiting this war out, as naive as some people may think that may sound, to find out how they are doing and what plans they have to continue on during this very trying time.
And just personally, I know as someone who's actually covering it, you ran into a lot of people with a lot of sad stories or maybe even some uplifting stories. How are you holding up on that side with hearing all of this information and also trying to disseminate it to the rest of us who are very curious about what's going on? How are you?
Thank you very much, Hawa. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. It is it's an incredibly difficult topic, covering conflict in any type of situation, and so I didn't imagine that it was going to be easy, but we've tried our hardest to speak to as many people as possible and remove our personal feelings or our personal opinions, whatever they may be, from the coverage and have people have their stories told. Initially, it was about looking at the evacuation process of Nigerians who do want to return home. That was the first reason we came here in the first place, and in staying behind and finding more Nigerians and hearing those stories, we've been able to establish that not everybody wants to come home. Much like the two students that we saw in my report yesterday and today, they are still dedicated to waiting this war out, believing that war will end in Ukraine soon and they will be able to finish their studies. One of the people I spoke to is a fifth-year medical student, and he believes that he has invested too much time, too much money into becoming a doctor, and he does not want to seemingly have to turn away at the last hurdle. So it is very difficult to hear these stories, but we listen to them and we continue to disseminate them and give them to the public at large so that they can be heard. And hopefully when it pertains to Nigerians or whomever who is trapped still on the Ukrainian side of the border, we will continue to tell those stories as best we can. As I said, the Nigerian ambassador to Poland, Charles Ugu, says he is planning to make his way to Medika today. He's currently in Warsaw. The last time we spoke, that's around 4 hours drive, and he's expected to make his way here and cross over into the Ukrainian side of this border to see for himself if there are Nigerian people still trapped, unable to make their way into Poland and into safety.
Arise correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya, thanks so much for reporting on Newsday.